Okay, 7th grade. We're on 7.4. That's not a very good point up there. Look at that. Put a comma instead of a point. Let's fix that. That should be a point. Well, let's just make it disappear. Page 354. In your book, Solving Multiplication and Division Equations. We just got done solving addition and subtraction equations. The rules are pretty much the same. Last time we used inverse operations. If it was adding, we used subtracting. If it was subtracting, we used adding. Now our inverse operations are going to be for multiplying and dividing. I didn't mean to do that, sorry. They undo each other, okay? So division property of equality. Dividing each side of an equation by the same non-zero number produces an equivalent equation. So what it's saying is this. If you have ax equals b and you want to get x by itself, you do the opposite of what's being done. So you read it out loud. That's a times x. The opposite of timesing by a would be to divide by a. And if you divide one side of the equation by a, you got to divide the other. And in this case then the a's would cancel out and then you would get the x by itself. So let's do some with numbers and you'll see what I mean. This is -3 times x. Our job is to still get the letter by itself. So we say it, I always say it out loud, -3 times x. And I say to myself, what's the opposite of timesing by -3? And that would be to divide by -3. Okay, and this is a little different. When you're adding, you would do a +3, but you divide by because you want these 3's to cancel out and two negatives make a positive. So x would be -15. And that's it. So you write the original equation, divide each side by -3, simplify. To check it, you could put it back in, and it comes out 45. So 6 times a equals 54. So the opposite of timesing by 6 would be to divide by 6, and I have to do that to both sides. The 6's cancel out, and a equals 9. Well, 6 times 9 is 54. -13 times b, the opposite of timesing by -13 would be to divide by -13, and make sure it's the negative because you need those negatives to cancel out. b equals -5. This one is a little tricky because there's an unwritten 1 right there. So you divide by -1. So s equals -16. Again, and another way to do it is just you don't want -b, you want +b. So to make that positive, you just switch the sign, and here you would just switch the sign. 8 times g, the opposite of timesing by 8 is to divide by 8. You do it to both sides. g equals 11. Make sure you're writing the original problems. -12 times n, the opposite of timesing by -12 is to divide by -12. You do that to both sides. Those cancel out. Negative, what, 9, I believe? There we go. Okay, so that's dividing both sides. Now let's talk about multiplying. Multiplying each side of an equation by the same non-zero number produces an equivalent equation. So let's say we have x divided by a equals b. We want to get the x by itself. The opposite of dividing by a is to multiply by a. So you would multiply both sides by a. The a's would cancel out, and then x would be by itself. So write that key concept down, and let's do it. So you find the side with the letter again, you say it out loud, x divided by 2. You do the opposite of what you say. The opposite of dividing by 2 would be to multiply by 2, and I just show it with the dot like this, times 2 on both sides. Whenever you do the opposite, it cancels them out, and 2 75 cents is $1.50. So it would be 1.5, 1.5. We're going to multiply by 2. There it is. So c divided by 2, the opposite of dividing by 2 is to multiply by 2. c equals 26. Those cancel. What's 26 divided by 2? 13. So you know it works. D divided by 5, so you times by 5. Those cancel out. D equals, I don't know what 3.4 times 5 is. And you put in one decimal place, it's 17, and it's going to be negative 17. You have to be really careful of the signs. S divided by negative 4, the opposite of dividing by negative 4 is to multiply by negative 4, because you need those negatives to cancel. S equals negative 12. A divided by negative 10, so you multiply by negative 10, multiply by negative 10. Two negatives make a positive. When you multiply, you move the decimal over the shortcut. Those would have canceled. That's it. Z divided by 7, so you times by 7. Z equals 100 and negative 105. R divided by 6, the opposite of dividing by 6 is to multiply by 6. You do that to both sides. R equals 30. Okay, so hopefully we've done enough of those examples there. Okay, now here's another little trick. One thing with fractions is when you have a fraction attached to a letter, like it is right here by multiplication, we still want to get this letter by itself. Okay? Well, if you say it out loud, that's 2/3 times x. Well, the opposite of timesing by 2/3 would be to divide by 2/3. Now, I want you to think back to dividing with fractions. When you divide with fractions, you end up multiplying by the reciprocal. So to help make it faster, all you do is go, hey, there's a fraction with the letter, so to get rid of it, I need to multiply it by its reciprocal. And those are going to cancel out. And if you multiply that side by the reciprocal, you have to multiply this side by the reciprocal. 2 cancels out. That's going to be negative 2. So negative 6 equals x. So you write the original. You multiply both sides by the reciprocal, because that when you divide, you end up multiplying anyway by the reciprocal. So negative 4 times r, you see the fraction with the letter, multiply by the reciprocal, which would be 5/4. Multiply by 5/4. Those cancel out, and r equals 5/4. Again, find the letter, multiply by the reciprocal. Remember, you're always trying to get rid of what's with the letter. So multiply by 5/2. The 2's would cancel out. The negative doesn't. Negative 5 equals t. Now this one, it's a negative 1/2, so to multiply by the reciprocal, it would be negative 2/1, because you need those negatives to cancel out. So times negative 2 would be positive 20. Okay, so anytime there's a fraction with a letter, multiply by the reciprocal. All right, a blimp travels 300 miles in 7.5 hours. The blimp travels at a constant speed. In example 4, you'll write and solve a multiplication equation to find the speed of the blimp. What is the speed of the blimp on page 354? Okay, so 300 miles in 7, so a multiplication equation. Distance equals rate times time. So you're gone 300 miles equals your rate times your time. So we'll divide by 7.5, divide by 7.5. 300, okay, over, and up. I don't know if you guys remember that part. I think I'm doing this right. 75 into $3 would be 4, which is 300 exact. It would be 40 miles per hour. I'm going to say C. We have the right formula. Look at that. Yes. Did it. A movie is sold as a DVD set that includes 7.5 hours of bonus material. This is 3 times as long as the movie itself. Write and solve an equation to find the length of the movie. Okay, it's 3 times as long as the movie. So 3x equals 7.5. I don't know if that's right. I think it is. Yeah. Divide by 3. Get the x by itself. 7.5 divided by 3 goes in there twice, which is 6. Oops, I'd go up there. The movie's 2.5 hours. There we go. So, remember, it's inverse. A lot of times you'll hear me say them out loud. I mean, obviously I have to say them out loud because I'm teaching them to you, but it just makes it easier, even though I'm doing it, for you to say them out loud to help you solve. You do the opposite of what you say. And remember, you multiply by a reciprocal when you have a fraction with the letter. So give them a shot, and we'll see you next time. Make sure you show your work.